I can sit with somebody who faces great loneliness and trouble. And dealing with that loneliness is painful as we approach this holiday season. But then I can sit with somebody who they'd be thankful to get rid of whoever or whatever. And I'd say, boy, if you could just meet so-and-so and figure, I don't know. Well, I don't know what your miracle is, friend. But I know that it's the mind of God. I never heard this song before until I was seeking the Lord. Which way? Which way? Yeah, I got to know which way. I got to know for me. Because I'm not one of these people who's just going to stand up and give you a good word. You can get on YouTube and you can find your famous preachers. And they'll do that for you. Like that, they'll tell you, we have 20 people that research this message and will give us all kinds of things. That's cool. But what I'm going to give you today is the word of the Lord. And I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just telling you, I know that this is the word from God for some of you, most of you. And those of you who don't know, boy, if you could grab a hold of it, if you could make like Abraham and see what you can't see and believe that you possess what you don't have, all things could be so much more. James put it this way, you have not because you ask not. But nonetheless, I want to play this little song. I'm seeking the Lord. And I turn on the radio and this song's on. And then I know clearly the mind of God for today. Never heard it before in my life. Go ahead and play it.
Yes. Okay. We got there on
whatever. And then all this came together here. I didn't know about Mary's testimony, but we'll certainly throw that in there. Look at this. I want to talk to you about processing a miracle or working a miracle. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. And after he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves, because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. And when the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter said, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith." He said, "Why did you do that?" Now, wasn't Jesus a rough counselor? I mean, we got our $75 an hour counselors and psychiatrists that give us a nice prescription to help us to deal with things. And let me just point out something here for y'all. Jesus was a harsh, mean counselor, because he should have applauded Peter. After all, Peter had walked on water. "Well, Peter, you're so successful. I appreciate your courage and your faith." And you know you're going to be a great man and do great things for God. And then smile. That's not what he said. He said, "Oh, ye of little faith." Put that back up there, please. I'm not done reading it, if you can. That's what it says. He said to him, "Why did you doubt?" He's trying to pull Peter to something a whole lot more than he's got. Sometimes get a hold of it. There's a time and a place not to use this psychobabble that goes on. And what you're listening to on Christian radio is psychobabble at times. Believe me, if you'll catch the words that are said and just realize what you need is the Lord to direct you. He's trying to steer Peter so Peter can end up being and doing what he wants Peter to be and do, which would take a whole lot more faith than what he had to step out of that boat to lead the whole church to what it was supposed to be, to stand up before all the Jews and say the Gentiles are saved just like us. It would take great faith. And the only way it would happen is if the man had the courage to stand up and say, "What's the matter with you? Believe." That's right. And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." When they had crossed over, they landed at Gennesaret. Father, take your word and make it real to your people today. I want to talk to you about walking on water. Now, what Peter did was a miracle. If you want to deny it, we'll go out here. Let's go on down to the pond there in town. They call it a lake, but it's really an overgrown pond. You see how many of you can walk on it. I guarantee you I can walk on it come late January. I guarantee you, but not right now. I'm not going to make that guarantee because y'all would show up to see. But let me talk to you about a miracle. He did a miracle. There was a miracle there. Jesus did. And Peter was involved in it. Some of you are believing God. You were given a promise last week that said that you get this miracle within the next couple of months. I don't know how that's going to be or what you're believing for or what's happening. I don't know exactly how it's going to transpire. I don't know if God's going to elevate you like Abraham to 2 levels higher of faith and you are going to clearly see it as if it were. I don't know if it's a physical thing that's going to happen. I can't answer all those questions. But I do believe the word that was given to you, and I want to show you your part and how to go about it. And that's this. 1, it takes obedience. They were told crossover. They could have said, "Hey man, we're tired. After all, we fed 5,000 people, distributed all those baskets and did all this work. We're tired. We're going to spend the night here. We'll go over in the morning." Do you know how many times Christians make excuses for their disobedience? You better keep moving, Pastor. Faith and obedience are inseparable, and God doesn't necessarily tolerate disobedience. If you ever want to see a case, it was Saul, King Saul. He was told to wait until the man of God came before and the man of God would make the sacrifice. He turned around and didn't do that. Seconds after the army's beginning to fall away and run because they're chicken and nothing's going on. Bad things are happening. And so he feels he's got to offer this sacrifice and start the fight right away before they all run. And then Samuel comes just a few minutes later. I've thought, Saul, if you just could have hung on a few more minutes. There's something there. And in the course of things, Samuel was like Jesus. He didn't mince any words with this boy. He didn't tell him, well, Saul, you've done so many good things, and you've been so faithful, and it is pitiful, and I can understand how you're stressed and nervous. No, he just told him about obedience and that he should have obeyed. Yes. Hello? Yes. It's free. It takes obedience. It takes work. Sometimes seeing your miracle happen takes work. Sometimes this church believed for this building to be built. And this building is used. But let me tell you, a lot of hard work went into it, a lot of sacrifice. How many of you follow me right now? Sometimes there's all kinds of miracles. It takes work. It's not easy. They rode all night, and for something that should have took approximately 2 to 3 hours, they were there all night and didn't get any place. Hardly. Keep working. It's going to happen. I hear God saying, keep working. It's going to happen. Well, I'm believing God for a good job someday, and I'm believing that I'll be able to do this, and I'll have this, and my son isn't going to have to face the things that I've had to face. Some of us don't even know what that is. But the only way that happens is hard work. Third, it takes endurance all night. If you can believe God for a miracle for one day and you don't get it and then you quit, you got a problem. Don't blame God when you don't get your miracle. Hello? Sometimes it takes a lifetime. I believed God for my dad about 7, 8 years. And my dad's kind of like Wendy's dad. A rough man in many ways. And I learned what it was to thank him for the good things he put in my life. A love for nature. I found God because of nature and outdoors. But I remember in a prayer meeting, had that rush of the Holy Spirit, didn't even know what it was, that said, this will be done. The peace that comes with it. That's the gift of faith. You can see what you can't see, and you have what you don't possess yet. And I'll never forget as a young Christian just weeping before God, saying, God, why don't you kill me if my dad does it? If my dad can't have a chance, just kill me. Take me out of here. I used to pray dumb prayers like that. The most powerful, effective prayers in my life. And I had that peace. It was about 7, 8 years later that my father would walk the aisle of a church when they gave an altar call. How many of you know rough old men don't do that? Anyways, it takes endurance. You don't stop believing. Even if you set it aside for a while, you pick it back up and you say, God, here I am again. I'm asking you for what seemingly is impossible. And I can't see it, but I believe that it's possible with you. Remember the words that were said early in this service? Earlier? By somebody who's anointed and leading worship? All things are possible. All things are possible. All things are possible. It takes a step of hearing and seeing when you cannot. Peter stepped out of the boat and all he could see was waves everywhere and high winds and rain. There's a storm. That's what he could see. But Jesus said, come. So he believed. How many of you follow me right now? The Bible teaches us to live in a realm of faith. Let me wrap this up. Let me tell you what else will happen in believing for a miracle. Some of the greatest things that God does is he develops our relationship with him. And in that process, there's no developing a relationship with God without developing a prayer life. You say, Pastor, I'm not a great prayer warrior. If I've learned anything about prayer in the last 15 years, is God doesn't want us to set one example of prayer, and people think that's the only way of praying. You remember the old days when we'd stand and we'd take a microphone and we'd spit and swarp all over it and holler and yell and scream and pray, and people begin to think that's the only way you can pray. And that's the only way that there's power and the anointing of God. Someplace God showed me multiple ways. Now, don't get me wrong. I used to do it, and I can still do it sometimes. But it isn't the only way to pray. Peter prayed one little prayer, and he got a pretty big answer. Saved his life. Help! It's a very effective prayer, if you believe it. Then the last thing about a miracle, and this is the part we miss, and maybe it's this part about the body. Whatever this miracle did, it was effectively working them together. Peter may have been the one who walked on the water, but let me tell you something. Those men were watching, those other disciples. This morning you heard somebody walking on water, getting a miracle. But you know what? I got to believe Bartholomew saw it. I got to believe Doubting Thomas saw it. Men who would do great things for God because of what somebody else received. Men who were in the same boat, suffering the same situation, the same storm, the same waves, the same flooding water and rain, and wind, but they saw that miracle into some light they received it to. Let me say this to you, don't get out of the boat. Don't say, well, I'm going to stay on shore, there's a storm blowing up here, and I'll just wait, well, I'll go tomorrow. Stay in the boat. You know, just a thought. They were together. That's all I'm going to say. I could have preached that thing, and that dog will hunt it if you wanted to, and I'm sure I'll use it someplace again. Sometime the Spirit will quicken it to me. But for you today, open your heart. Allow God to be what he wants to be in your life and receive your miracle. Now, don't be dumb. If you're here and you're 65, don't ask to be a 25-year-old. That isn't going to work. No. But ask God for what's in the mind of his Spirit. For eternal things. For temporal things that lead to eternal things. And believe God for the impossible. There's a miracle going on in this church that most of you will never know about. I won't say her name because this is put on YouTube, but there's a little girl, the first time I met her, she crawled. And she couldn't even crawl properly. But God put it in my heart that she'd walk and talk and have a normal life. And if you're involved with Life Kids, you know who I'm talking about. I love this little girl. I've met her parents. Very little ever said or shared. But I believe for her life. And let me tell you something, she's walking. She may not walk just like you or I, but she walks. And she will walk better. Okay? And I believe that she will talk. And she will have wholeness of life far more than ever expected for her. Because God does the impossible. I'm looking at you with all your fears and doubts. God does the impossible. And friend, you're with a human being. I have my fears and doubts. I have my troubles. But when I get a hold of God, all things are possible. Hello? All things are possible. This morning as you pick up these emblems, they're given as a memorial to remind us of Jesus' shed blood and death. Please come. Those that are going to help serve communion, the elders and deacons. And please remember that as you pick up these emblems, he died so that all things could be possible. You're going to see two men standing in here on the inside. One's going to be sitting because that's what he needs to do. Sam Rossi will be here. And I want you to sit right there so that I know you're comfortable. There's a reason why I bring them to the inside. They're the oldest. And they've also lived the longest. And they've also seen the pain and the tears and the pressures of life. And they've survived. They're still sweet. They're not bitter. They're not angry. I know both of them personally, and I know that they'd have excuses and reasons that they could be. But they're not. They never give up on the Lord or the Lord's church. That's why they lay hands on people. That's the kind of person you need to lay hands on when you're in trouble. Believe me. That's why they're here. That's why God's put them here. And thankfully, we're in a church that believes in honor and believes in age. Doesn't disrespect somebody like you're too old, you're not the same old Bruce anymore. And toss you off to the side. No, they got something to give. So do these other brethren, ladies. But there's a reason that they come in here to pray. Hello? And we want it to stand that way. You're here and you need a miracle. All I need to do is lay hands on you today for a little bit. Because I'll tell you why. I already know what God's doing. It's easy to pick up. He's willing to do those miracles. Don't ask something dumb. Ask something that's in line with the Spirit, and God's willing to do that miracle. Don't ask for a big black Lexus out in the parking lot. Some people will push it in a bag of cash in the back. And Lord, if you can just arrange it, my wife to be gone, and a nice blonde in the car. Dear God, that's not the Spirit of the Lord. And some of you ladies are laughing, but you say, a nice, handsome gentleman. Don't do it. Ask what's the mind of the Spirit. God will give it to you. Hello? How many of you follow me right now? Some of you have been praying for years. I align my faith with the word said last week. You're going to receive it shortly. We serve an open communion, as I said. If you believe in Jesus, you're open, ready for us. We're willing to serve you communion. Partake with us. This is the body of Christ, not a place of judgment or condemnation. We may not all think alike. We're certainly not all alike. But we can love the same Christ. And realize that in our needs and weakness, we pick one another up. So come and partake with us. And believe the Lord for your miracle, whatever it is. I don't know when it's coming, but I know that it's coming. I don't know exactly how God will do your miracle. But isn't it interesting that He does things and sometimes He doesn't do it the way I planned? That's really troublesome until I figured out He's God, not me. How many of you know what I'm talking about? And I learned something else about me. God doesn't have to do it the way I have it all figured out. I'm just thankful that He does it. How many of you know what I'm saying here? I'm thankful He does it. A couple years back, I had a battle with cancer. So most of you know that. Some of you here, I don't even, I'm probably saying it for somebody who's not. I'll never forget when God told me that I had to go through it. And people question, well, are you believing God, this, that? And I don't know why I had to go through those treatments. I certainly didn't like them. Don't want to do that again. But I will tell you this, God was faithful. He did a miracle. I'll take it any way I can get it. Take your miracle from God any way He chooses to give it. If you need prayer, come to the inside. These men will anoint you, Lord, and pray with you, myself. If you just want to pick up your elements and go to your seat, wait until all have been served, and then we'll partake together as a family. And whatever it is, if you say, I don't need a thing, Pastor, would you believe for somebody else who does? There's people all over this room that need a miracle. Things that are so much bigger than you or I. I feel the pressure at times, more than other times. And I've learned that His yoke is easy and His burden light. But this week in particular, I feel the pressure. I feel the weight that some of you feel. And I'm not God, but I know a God who can take it. Amen? Come and get your elements. Come and get prayer, whatever you need. If you can pick up your elements, just step to the outside and go back around to your seat. If you need prayer, step up into the middle. One of these brothers will pray with you. We'll go from there.